Welcome back to Untold Revenge Files. Today, the story you're about to hear takes place in Briarwood, Illinois. My name is Celeste Marsden, and I'm 36 years old. What I'm about to share with you happened just 6 months ago, though the roots of this story go back much further. Don't make a scene, Celeste. Your father left you nothing. Those words hit me like ice water as I stood in the cramped law office on Maple Street, still wearing my black funeral dress. The smell of old leather and coffee hung in the air, mixing with my mother's expensive perfume. I could barely process what she'd just said. Nothing? I stared at her perfectly composed face. I was there every single day, Mom. Every chemo appointment. Every sleepless night. She shrugged, adjusting her pearl necklace with manicured fingers. He knew who deserved it. Some people are meant to carry on legacies. Others? She glanced at my flour-stained fingernails. Are meant for simpler things. My brother Marcus smirked beside her, already loosening his tie like he'd won something. At 39, he still had that same superior expression he'd worn since we were kids. The golden child who went to Northwestern, who worked at a consulting firm downtown, who visited Dad maybe twice a month if we were lucky. The lawyer, Mr. Peterson, cleared his throat nervously. Actually, there's something else we need to discuss. Before I tell you what happened next, let me explain who I really am. I run a small home bakery business out of my kitchen in Briarwood. Nothing fancy, just custom cakes, morning pastries, and the kind of comfort food that reminds people of better times. My apartment above the old pharmacy on Division Street always smells like vanilla and cinnamon. It's not the law degree my parents paid for, not the corporate career they'd envisioned, but it's mine. Growing up in Briarwood, I was always the quiet one. Marcus was the star, captain of the debate team, valedictorian, the one whose achievements covered our refrigerator while my honor roll certificates got filed away in drawers. Dad owned Marsden's Auto Repair on the corner of 3rd and Main. It wasn't glamorous, but it kept food on our table and paid for our education. The shop had been in our family for 3 generations, started by my grandfather after he came back from Korea. When Dad got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 18 months ago, everything changed. I adjusted my bakery schedule, waking at 3 a.m. to finish orders before driving him to Northwestern Memorial for chemo. I held the bucket when he was sick. I researched treatments online until my eyes burned. I slept in hospital chairs that made my back ache for days. Marcus sent flowers. Mom complained about the drive to the city. "You're wasting your degree making cookies," Mom had said during one particularly bad treatment day. Marcus could have handled this if his schedule wasn't so demanding. But I wasn't there for her approval. I was there because Dad needed me, because when the morphine made him confused, my voice could calm him down. Because I knew exactly how he liked his coffee, black with just a whisper of sugar, and which baseball games to put on when he couldn't sleep. The afternoon of the funeral had been typical November in Illinois. Gray, bitter, with wind that cut through your coat no matter how many layers you wore. St. Augustine's church was packed, all of Briarwood turning out for a man who'd fixed their cars and never overcharged, who'd sponsored Little League teams and quietly paid for repairs when single mothers couldn't afford them. I'd given the eulogy while Marcus checked his phone. I'd chosen the songs while Mom worried about the caterers. I'd held it together until everyone left, then sobbed in my car until my ribs hurt. And now, 3 hours later, I was being told I deserved nothing. Mr. Peterson adjusted his glasses, pulling out a manila folder. The will I just read was dated 14 months ago. However, there's a second document filed just 6 weeks later. Mom's face tightened. "That's impossible. Richard would have told me." "Actually, Mrs. Marsden, your husband came to me privately. He was quite specific about his instructions." Marcus leaned forward. "This is ridiculous. Dad wasn't in his right mind after the diagnosis. Any changes he made?" "Your father was completely lucid," Mr. Peterson interrupted, his usual mild manner sharpening. "I can provide the medical competency evaluation he insisted on having done simultaneously." The room felt smaller suddenly. Mom's breathing had changed, become shallow and quick. Marcus's foot started tapping against the chair leg, his tell since childhood when things weren't going his way. "What does it say?" I asked quietly. Mr. Peterson looked directly at me for the first time since we'd arrived. "Miss Marsden, Your father wanted to ensure you were protected. The second will split the auto shop equally between you and your brother. The family home remains with your mother, but there are specific conditions. This is absurd. Marcus stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. Celeste doesn't know anything about running a business. She makes cupcakes. I run my own business, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Have for 5 years. That's not the same thing, Mom snapped. The shop needs someone with actual business acumen, someone who understands. Someone who wasn't there? The words came out before I could stop them. Someone who couldn't tell you what medication Dad was on? Someone who doesn't even know the names of his mechanics? The silence that followed was deafening. The next 3 weeks were a masterclass in family psychological warfare. The morning after the will reading, I arrived at Marsden's Auto Repair to find the locks had been changed. A crisp white notice was taped to the door. Under new management, please contact Marcus Marsden for all inquiries. Tony, Dad's longest employed mechanic, was standing by his truck looking confused. Celeste, what's going on? Your brother was here at 6 a.m. with a locksmith. Told us we couldn't start work until he'd assessed the situation. It's complicated, Tony, I said, photographing the notice with my phone. But don't worry, this isn't over. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Don't embarrass yourself or the family. Let's handle this like adults. I wanted to laugh. Adults. As if changing locks while I was making funeral arrangements for our father was adult behavior. That afternoon, Mom called a family meeting at the house I'd grown up in. The same house where Dad had taught me to change oil in the garage, where I'd practiced cake decorating at the kitchen table while Marcus got tutored for the SATs. You need to be reasonable, she began before I'd even taken off my coat. Marcus has an MBA. He has connections. He understands how to scale a business. Scale it? I set down my purse slowly. Dad's shop isn't some startup. It's a community institution. People trust us because they trusted Richard, she interrupted. Now they need to trust someone with actual business credentials. Marcus sat in Dad's old recliner, Dad's chair where no one else ever sat, looking at his phone. I've already had 3 offers to buy the property. We could make a significant profit. The room tilted. You want to sell Dad's shop? Don't be emotional, Mom said. It's prime real estate. That corner location could be a Starbucks or a wellness center, something Briarwood actually needs. Briarwood needs a place to get their cars fixed by people they trust, I shot back. Dad built relationships with those customers over 30 years. Relationships don't pay bills, Marcus said without looking up from his phone. No, but they did pay for your Northwestern education. The silence crackled. Mom's face flushed. How dare you? How dare I what? Tell the truth? That shop, those relationships you're so quick to dismiss, they paid for everything. Our education, this house, your jewelry, Mom. Every pearl on that necklace came from oil changes and brake jobs. You need to sign the waiver, Marcus said, finally looking at me. Don't contest the will. Don't drag this through courts. Think about Dad's reputation. Dad's reputation? I stood up. You mean like how everyone in town knows you haven't been to the shop in 2 years? How you missed his 70th birthday party because of a conference in Miami that turned out to be a golf weekend? Mom stood too, her voice ice cold. You sign that waiver, or you're not welcome in this house again. I looked around the living room, at the pictures on the mantel where Marcus featured prominently in graduation photos while mine were relegated to side tables, at the trophy case full of his debate awards while my culinary school certificate was nowhere to be seen. I need to think about it, I said quietly, heading for the door. There's nothing to think about, Mom called after me. You get nothing, Celeste. You were never going to get anything. Richard knew Marcus was the only one capable of carrying on the Marsden name properly. I stopped at the door but didn't turn around. Then why did he make a second will? The question hung in the air as I left. That Sunday, at the church lunch after service, Mom escalated. She sat at the center table, the one reserved for church board members and their families, holding court with her friends. It's so difficult, I heard her say as I entered with my contribution, 3 dozen cupcakes I'd made for the youth group bake sale. Some children just can't handle responsibility. Celeste means well, but baking cupcakes isn't the same as running a real business. Richard understood that. Mrs. Henderson nodded sympathetically. It must be so hard, especially with Marcus being so successful. Some children just bloom differently. Or don't bloom at all, Mom added with a theatrical sigh. The laughter that followed felt like needles under my skin. I set down the cupcakes, my hands trembling slightly. Pastor William's wife, Janet, touched my arm gently. "These look beautiful, dear," she said loudly enough for the other table to hear. "The youth group raised $300 last month from your donations alone." "It's nothing," I said, but Janet squeezed my hand. "Your father was so proud of you," she whispered. "He told me so just last month." I managed to smile and stay through lunch, even as Mom's voice carried across the fellowship hall, explaining how Marcus was modernizing the shop, bringing it into the 21st century, as if Dad's way of running things was some antiquated relic. What they didn't know, what none of them could have guessed, was that I'd been preparing for this moment for months. During Dad's treatment, when he was too weak to handle paperwork, I'd taken over. I scanned every document, uploaded every bank statement, saved every email. I'd noticed things, strange transfers, accounts being accessed at odd hours, emails from Marcus about finalizing arrangements, while Dad was barely conscious from pain medication. I had recordings too. My phone, always recording during those long hospital nights, not for any nefarious purpose, but because Dad would sometimes say things he wanted me to remember, messages for mechanics, or stories about customers. But it also caught other conversations. Marcus pressuring Dad to sign papers, Mom insisting Dad was too emotional to make good decisions. And most importantly, it caught Dad's voice, weak but clear. "I don't want to be rushed into anything. Celeste understands what the shop means. She understands community." That night, alone in my apartment, I opened my laptop and began organizing everything into folders. Bank statements showing Marcus had been siphoning money from the business account. Emails where he discussed selling to developers before Dad was even diagnosed. Screenshots of text messages between him and Mom, planning how to handle the Celeste problem. They thought I was weak because I was quiet. They thought I was stupid because I chose flour over finance. They were about to learn that the daughter who bakes cupcakes was also the daughter who'd inherited Dad's real gift, the ability to see people for who they really are. My cousin Rachel showed up at my apartment on a Tuesday evening, holding a bottle of wine and wearing that expression that meant she had something to say. Rachel was what Mom called the family's disappointment, a 40-year-old massage therapist who lived with her girlfriend and had never quite figured out how to play by the Marsden family rules. "I saw what happened at church," she said, not bothering with pleasantries. "Your mom's really going for the throat?" I let her in, grateful for an ally. My apartment was small but warm, filled with the smell of tomorrow's orders, 2 birthday cakes and 3 dozen muffins for the coffee shop downtown. "She's always been good at public relations," I said, pouring the wine. Rachel snorted. "Is that what we're calling it? Listen, Cel, there's something you need to know. I saw Marcus at the hospital with Dad 3 days before he died. They were arguing." I set down my glass. "What about?" I couldn't hear everything, but Marcus kept saying Dad needed to be reasonable and think about the family's future. Dad was upset, more upset than I'd seen him since the diagnosis. He kept saying, "I already decided," and "respect my wishes." "Did you tell anyone?" "Who would I tell? Your mom?" Rachel laughed bitterly. "She already thinks I'm a disgrace to the family name, but I took pictures." She pulled out her phone, showing me timestamps. Marcus had been there during what he'd told everyone was an important client meeting in New York. "There's more," Rachel continued. "My girlfriend Elena works at the bank. She can't give me details, legally, you know, but she mentioned seeing some interesting activity on the shop's accounts. Suggested maybe someone should look into it if there were ever any questions about the estate." That night, Rachel helped me connect with her friend James Morrison, a probate attorney from Rockford who specialized in contested wills. He reviewed my evidence in his cramped office above a dry cleaner's, his expression growing more serious with each document. "This is substantial," he said finally. "The second will alone would be enough to contest, but with evidence of coercion and financial manipulation?" Your brother and mother could face serious consequences. I don't want to destroy them, I said, though part of me wondered if that was entirely true. I just want what Dad intended. James nodded. The second will is clear. Equal division of the business with a specific clause about coercion voiding any previous arrangements. Your father was thorough. It's almost like he knew this would happen. He probably did. Dad was many things, but naive wasn't one of them. Meanwhile, Marcus was moving fast. He'd hired a management company to run the shop, raising prices and cutting the old-timers' hours. Tony called me, nearly in tears. He's letting go of Miguel and Steve, says we need fresh blood and modern techniques. These guys have been here 15 years, Celeste. They've got families. I told Tony to document everything, to have the others do the same. Every change, every conversation, every broken promise. The pressure increased. Mom started calling my vendors, suggesting they might want to reconsider working with someone involved in family legal disputes. I lost 2 wedding cake orders. The coffee shop owner, thankfully, told her where she could put her suggestions. Marcus had his lawyer send increasingly aggressive letters. Sign the waiver. Accept a modest settlement. Think about what your father would want. I knew what Dad wanted. I had it in writing, notarized and witnessed. 3 weeks before the hearing, something unexpected happened. Mrs. Chen, who owned the flower shop next to Dad's garage, called me. Celeste, dear, I thought you should know. There are developers measuring the property. They're talking about demolition timelines. My blood went cold. The shop's not for sale. That's not what your brother told them. He's been showing them around after hours. I have security footage if you need it. I did need it. I needed everything. The community began to notice. Regular customers found themselves turned away for not having appointments. The informal credit Dad had extended to struggling families was revoked. The free safety checks for senior citizens ended. Pete Kowalski, whose family had been coming to the shop for 3 generations, confronted Marcus directly. I heard about it from Pete's son, who worked at the hardware store. Your brother told him it wasn't a charity. Said if people couldn't afford proper maintenance, they shouldn't own cars. Can you believe that? Your dad fixed my mom's car for free when my father was laid off in 2008. Never said a word about it until years later. These stories poured in. Dad helping single mothers, veterans, teachers living paycheck to paycheck. The shop wasn't just a business, it was a cornerstone of Briarwood's working-class community. And Marcus was treating it like a commodity to be flipped. I compiled every story, every testimonial. James said we didn't need character witnesses for a probate hearing, but I wanted them anyway. I wanted everyone to know who Dad really was and what the shop really meant. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my kitchen, decorating a cake for a 5th grader's birthday, trying to steady my hands and my nerves. The familiar rhythm of piping buttercream usually calmed me, but tonight my mind raced. My phone rang at 2 a.m. Mom. You can still stop this, she said without preamble. We'll give you $50,000. Cash. Walk away and we all move forward. It's not about money, Mom. Everything is about money, Celeste. Don't be a child. Is that why you pressured Dad when he was dying? For money? The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Your father was confused at the end, she finally said. The medication, the pain. He didn't know what he was signing. I have recordings that say otherwise. Another silence. Then, in a voice I'd never heard from her before, desperate, almost pleading. He promised Marcus would inherit. From the time he was young, we told him the shop would be his. You can't take that away. I'm not taking anything, I said. I'm honoring what Dad actually wanted, not what you told Marcus he could have. You'll regret this. When you're alone, when the family wants nothing to do with you, when you realize what you've thrown away for some principle that won't keep you warm at night, you'll regret this. Maybe, I said, but at least I'll be able to look at myself in the mirror. She hung up. I finished the cake, wrote, Happy Birthday, Emma, in perfect purple script, and watched the sun rise over Briarwood. The Winnebago County Courthouse stood like a brick monument to justice on a cold December morning. I arrived early, wearing my best black suit, the one I'd bought for job interviews I never went to after culinary school. James was already there, arranging documents with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done this hundreds of times. "You ready?" he asked. "No," I admitted, "but I'm here." Mom walked in at exactly 9 a.m., wearing a St. John suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Marcus followed in his tailored Navy suit, his lawyer, a shark from Chicago named Brennan, at his side. They took their seats without acknowledging me. Judge Patricia Henley presided, a woman known for her no-nonsense approach and intolerance for family drama. She reviewed the initial will, then asked James to present our case. "Your Honor," James began, "we're here to validate Richard Marsden's second will, created 6 weeks after the first, which clearly divides the family business equally between both children. We have evidence that the deceased was of sound mind and that the second will includes specific provisions about coercion." Brennan stood. "That alleged will was created under duress, Your Honor. Mr. Marsden was suffering from terminal cancer, heavily medicated, and being unduly influenced by his daughter, who had appointed herself his caretaker." "I didn't appoint myself anything," I said before James could stop me. "I was the only one there." Judge Henley raised an eyebrow. "Ms. Marsden, you'll have your chance to speak." "Apologies, Your Honor." James presented the second will, along with the medical competency evaluation Dad had insisted on. As you can see, Mr. Marsden was quite thorough. He even included a handwritten letter explaining his intentions. The judge read aloud, "I want both my children to share in the family legacy. Marcus has his own successful career and doesn't need the shop, but it's his birthright too. Celeste understands the soul of the business, the community, the relationships, the trust we've built. Together, they could make it something greater. Separately, I fear it will be lost." Mom shifted in her seat. Marcus's jaw tightened. "Furthermore," James continued, "we have evidence of financial irregularities in the business accounts prior to Mr. Marsden's death." He presented the bank records, the unauthorized transfers, the emails about selling to developers. Brennan objected repeatedly, but Judge Henley allowed it all. Then came the recordings. Dad's voice filled the courtroom, weak but unmistakable. "I don't want to be pressured, Marcus. I've made my decision." Marcus's response, "You're not thinking clearly, Dad. The medication. My mind is fine. The shop needs someone who understands what it means to Briarwood. Celeste understands." "Celeste makes cakes, Dad. That's not a business." "It's more of a business than what you're planning. I know about the developer's son. I know about the offers." "Turn that off," Mom whispered urgently, but Judge Henley held up a hand. The recording continued. Dad's voice, stronger now, angry. "You think I'm stupid? You think I don't know you've been moving money? Tony told me. The mechanics see everything, Marcus. They're loyal to the shop, not to whoever signs their paychecks." "Dad, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly. That's why I made the second will. That's why I had Dr. Morrison certify I was competent. That's why I'm recording this conversation." Silence in the courtroom. Dad had known. He'd known he was being recorded because he was the one recording. The next voice was Dad's alone, clearly speaking directly to the recording device. "If anyone's listening to this after I'm gone, know that I'm of sound mind. I want both my children to inherit equally. I want the shop to remain in Briarwood, serving the community. And if there's been any coercion or manipulation, I want the court to know that I, Richard James Marsden, was aware of it and made my decisions despite it, not because of it." Judge Henley looked at Marcus. "Mr. Marsden, do you have any explanation for these financial transfers?" Marcus's lawyer whispered urgently in his ear. "I was managing the business while my father was ill. Any transfers were for operational purposes." "Operational purposes that included meetings with commercial developers?" Judge Henley asked, reviewing the evidence. "Before your father's death?" "We were exploring options." "Against your father's explicit wishes?" Brennan stood. "Your Honor, my client was acting in what he believed were the best interests of the business." "The business that wasn't his yet?" The judge's tone was sharp. She turned to me. "Ms. Marsden, what are you seeking?" I stood, my legs surprisingly steady. I want to honor my father's wishes, Your Honor. Equal division of the business, as stated in the second will. I don't want to destroy my family, but I also won't let them destroy what my father built. And if the court upholds the second will, then I'll do what I've always done. Work hard, serve the community, and try to make my father proud. Mom stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. She knows nothing about running a real business. Mrs. Marsden, Judge Henley said coldly, you're not a party to this will. Please sit down or leave. Mom sat, her face flushed. The judge reviewed more documents, asked more questions. Then she called a recess. Those 20 minutes felt like hours. James squeezed my shoulder. Rachel, who'd come for support, held my hand. The mechanics from the shop, Tony, Miguel, Steve, and others, sat in the back row, a silent wall of support. When Judge Henley returned, her decision was swift and decisive. The court finds the second will valid and enforceable. The evidence clearly shows Mr. Richard Marsden was of sound mind and acted deliberately to ensure both his children inherited equally. Furthermore, the evidence of financial manipulation and coercion actually strengthens the validity of the second will, as it shows Mr. Marsden was aware of these pressures and acted to prevent them. She looked directly at Marcus. Mr. Marsden, you will return full control of the business accounts immediately. Any unauthorized transfers will be reversed. The business will be divided equally between you and your sister. Then she turned to me. Ms. Marsden, you have options. You can force a sale of the business and take your half. You can buy out your brother's share if he's willing, or you can attempt to run it jointly. I understand, Your Honor. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down with a finality that echoed through the room. Marcus stormed out without a word. Mom followed, but stopped at the door, turning back to look at me. For a moment, her mask slipped, and I saw something that might have been regret. Then it was gone, and so was she. Epilogue. 6 months later, I chose to buy Marcus out. It took everything, my savings, a business loan, and help from some of Dad's old friends who believed in what the shop represented. Marcus took the money without fanfare, moving to Chicago permanently. We haven't spoken since. Mom still lives in Briarwood, but we move in different circles now. I heard she tells people I stole the shop, but most folks know better. The truth has a way of surfacing in small towns. The shop is thriving. I kept all Dad's mechanics, brought back the community programs, and added something new, a small cafe corner where I sell coffee and pastries in the morning. Turns out mechanics and customers alike appreciate good coffee and fresh muffins while they wait. Tony jokes that we're the only auto shop in Illinois that smells like cinnamon rolls instead of motor oil. I think Dad would have loved it. Last week, a young single mother came in with a broken alternator and no money until payday. I told her we'd work something out, just like Dad would have. She cried, said she'd heard the shop was different now, more corporate. No, I told her. It's exactly the same, just under new management. I kept Dad's office exactly as he left it, except for one addition, the second will framed on the wall, not as a trophy, but as a reminder that quiet strength can triumph over loud ambition, that community matters more than profit margins, that sometimes the child who stays close to home understands the true value of what home means. If you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or told you weren't enough, know this: your time will come. Truth and patience are powerful allies, and sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply living well and honoring those who truly saw your worth. The shop sign still reads Marsden's Auto Repair, just like it has for 60 years. But now, in smaller letters underneath, it says, Celeste Marsden, Proprietor. Every morning when I unlock those doors, I whisper the same thing. This one's for you, Dad. And somehow, I know he hears me,